Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit. We're diving into the world of Metaverse Fashion Week today.
Metaverse Fashion Week. Sounds flashy, but is it really the future of fashion?
That's what we're here to find out. We're looking at this research paper, The Role of Immersive Spaces on the Customer Experience, an exploration of fashion metaverses. It's a mouthful, I know.
But catchy.
Well, hopefully the research is just as engaging. They really zero in on customer experience, breaking it down into these 4 key dimensions: cognitive, affective, behavioral, and social.
The 4 horsemen of the customer experience apocalypse.
Well, let's hope it's not that dramatic. But you've got to break these things down, right? So cognitive, that's all about perception. What were people's first impressions of this whole MVFW thing?
Right, first impressions. The researchers actually had participants keep diaries and participate in focus groups. Fascinating stuff. Some people, they were all in, saw it as this revolutionary event, pushing boundaries, all that.
Yeah, the metaverse does have that shiny new toy appeal.
It does. But then there were others who, let's just say, weren't quite as sold on the whole thing.
Skeptics. Every new technology has them. What were they hung up on?
Well, some of it was just the technology itself. It's still early days, right? Not everyone's ready to jump into virtual reality.
I get it. Change can be a bit overwhelming.
Okay.
So we've got the cognitive side covered. But what about the emotional response? That's the affective dimension.
Right. And that's where things get interesting. Because here, the responses were a little less, well, positive.
Oh, not everyone was over the moon about attending a fashion show from their living room.
Not exactly. Words like bored, frustrated, even lonely popped up in those participant diaries.
Wow, those are some strong reactions to virtual fashion.
Yeah.
I guess even in the metaverse, customer experience matters.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the behavioral dimension. Did MVFW actually make people change their shopping habits?
Did it translate into real-world action? That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Well, some participants did say they were more likely to check out a brand's website or even visit a physical store after experiencing them in the metaverse.
Interesting. So maybe it's more about driving curiosity and brand awareness than replacing our online shopping carts.
It seems that way, at least for now, but when it came to actually making purchases in the metaverse, not so much.
Okay, so we've covered cognitive, affective, behavioral. What about the social aspect? Wasn't the metaverse supposed to revolutionize the way we connect?
That was the pitch, wasn't it? But this is where the research gets really interesting.
Don't leave me hanging. What did they find?
Well, a lot of participants, they went into MVFW hoping to connect with this whole community of fashion lovers. But what did they find?
Was there like nobody there? Just a bunch of empty avatars?
Kind of. Not literally, of course, but many participants walked away feeling, well, isolated. Like the metaverse wasn't the social utopia they were promised.
It's like going to a party and realizing you're the only one who showed up.
That's fascinating. But now I'm wondering, how did the researchers even find people to talk to about this? Metaverse experience isn't exactly common knowledge yet.
That's a great question. They actually used a mix of purposive sampling and snowball sampling, basically, starting with people they knew and then asking for introductions to others who had experience with these fashion metaverses.
So, networking. Even in the world of academic research, but who are they looking for specifically? Fashionistas with VR headsets.
Basically, they focused on millennials and Gen Z, the generation that practically grew up online.
True. Makes sense. Those digital natives are probably the most likely to be early adopters of metaverse technology. Did the paper say how many people they ended up talking to?
They conducted 20 diary studies, although not all the participants completed the full diary process. But to compensate for that, they held 5 focus groups, each with 4 participants. Smart. Get those diverse perspectives. Okay, so they've laid the groundwork for understanding the customer experience. But what did they find? Did this research uncover any frameworks to help us make sense of all this metaverse data?
It did. They actually used a framework based on 4 existing theories to analyze the customer experience in the metaverse.
Okay, I'm all about a good framework. Break it down for me. What were these theories and how do they apply to the metaverse?
Well, they used the technology acceptance model, the unified theory of acceptance and use of technology.
Catchy titles.
Right. And then there's the expectation confirmation model and the stimulate organism response model.
Wow, that's quite the lineup. So what did these models reveal about how people are experiencing fashion in the metaverse?
Each theory kind of looks at the metaverse experience through a different lens. You've got the technology acceptance model, for example.
Okay, break that one down for me.
It basically says people are more likely to use a new technology, like a virtual fashion show platform, if they see it as useful and easy to use. Makes sense, right?
Totally. Yeah. No one wants to use something that feels clunky or pointless.
Exactly. And the research looked at what attendees actually found useful about MVFW. For example, personalizing avatars was a big one. People loved that.
Makes sense. It's fun, and it lets you express yourself. Plus, if the tech is easy to use, that's a win-win.
Right. So that ticks those boxes, usefulness and ease of use. Now, there's also the unified theory of acceptance and use of technology. A mouthful, I know.
Go on, I'm all ears.
Well, it builds on those ideas of usefulness and ease of use, but it also throws in social influence and what they call facilitating conditions.
So peer pressure and having the right tech setup.
That's a good way to put it. It means that we're more likely to use a technology if everyone else is using it, and it actually works well.
So if all my friends are raving about this amazing virtual fashion show and the tech is seamless, I'm more likely to check it out.
Exactly. But if it's a technical nightmare and none of my friends are even there, I'm probably going to skip it.
I can see that. Who wants to suffer through a laggy metaverse experience alone? Okay, what's next? What about that expectation confirmation model?
Right. That one focuses on how well the experience actually meets our expectations. Like, if I go into MVFW expecting this totally mind-blowing immersive experience.
And it's just a bunch of pixelated avatars and a boring presentation.
Exactly. You're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So managing expectations is huge, especially with something as hyped up as the metaverse.
It's like anything else, really. If you set the bar too high, people are bound to be let down. What was the last one? What was it again?
Stimuli organism response model. It's basically looking at how the metaverse environment, that's the stimuli, affects our internal states, like our emotions and perceptions, and how that ultimately leads to our behavior, whether we engage, disengage, or even make a purchase.
Okay, so it's a chain reaction. The metaverse experience triggers certain feelings, which then influence how we act.
Right. And the researchers took these 4 models, and they actually used them to create a visual representation of the customer experience in the metaverse, which you can check out in Figure 1 of the paper.
So they mapped out how everything from the technology to the social interactions all impact our overall satisfaction.
Pretty much. And understanding the why behind those experiences, that's key for brands, especially if they actually want to create metaverse experiences that people enjoy.
Makes sense. You can't just throw people into a virtual world and expect them to be happy about it. Speaking of, in terms of their participant selection, did the researchers mention any limitations of their approach?
Yeah, they did. They acknowledged that their focus on millennials and Gen Z, while strategic, could mean that they're missing out on insights from other generations.
I mean, it's true. Not everyone in the metaverse is under 40.
Right. And they also recognize that relying on things like diaries and focus groups, well, that's all based on people accurately remembering and describing their own experiences, which isn't always reliable.
Especially with something as new and nuanced as the metaverse. But hey, even with limitations, this kind of research is so valuable.
Totally. It's like a starting point. So speaking of challenges, let's talk about some of the metaverse pain points. What were some of the biggest frustrations that came up in this research?
Yeah, spill the tea. What went wrong?
Well, technical issues were a big one, unsurprisingly.
Glitches in the matrix.
Pretty much. Slow loading times, things not working properly. It's a major mood killer, especially when you're trying to have this immersive experience.
For sure. It kind of ruins the illusion, doesn't it? What else?
Interoperability, well, the lack of it was a common complaint. People hated feeling trapped in one platform and not being able to move between different metaverse spaces.
Yeah. It's like we have all these separate metaverses and none of them can communicate with each other. Super frustrating.
Exactly. And until that changes, that frustration is going to keep holding the metaverse back.
So it sounds like there's still work to be done. And that's not all doom and gloom in the metaverse, then, right? Did the researchers offer any solutions? Like, what can brands do to make these experiences better?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They actually highlighted 3 key areas where brands can really up their game: interoperability, personalization, and creating a sense of purpose.
Okay, so starting with interoperability, what exactly does that look like in the metaverse?
Well, right now, it's like all these separate virtual worlds, right? But imagine if you could seamlessly move between them. Take your avatar, your stuff, your friends with you.
Oh, that would be amazing. No more feeling stuck. Okay, what about personalization? Everyone's throwing that word around these days.
It's more than just a buzzword in the metaverse, though. It's about giving users real control, letting them express themselves in ways they never could in real life, designing their own avatars, their experiences.
Like everyone gets to be a creator. I like it. Okay, and finally, creating a sense of purpose. That feels kind of deep for the metaverse. How do you even do that?
It comes down to this. What are people actually doing in the metaverse? Why are they spending their time there? Brands need to think about that.
So it has to be more than just a virtual playground.
Right. Think about incorporating games, educational experiences, even social activism. Give people a reason to be there.
Make it about something bigger than just buying virtual clothes, right?
Exactly. I think that's where the real potential is. If we can make the metaverse about more than just consumerism, imagine the connections we could create, the things we could learn.
Wow. When you put it that way, it really gets you thinking. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. What's the final verdict? Is the metaverse the future, or is it just a fad?
It's still too early to say, for sure.
Yeah.
But this research, it's a great start. It's up to brands to really take these insights and create something amazing.
Well said. And on that note, a huge thank you to Bathan Alexander, Marta Blazquez, Courtney Chrimes, and Rosie Boardman for their awesome research published in Psychology and Marketing.
Yes, such a good read. It's research like this that helps us all navigate this crazy world of technology.
Couldn't agree more. And that's a wrap on this episode of Revise and Resubmit. Until next time, happy exploring in the metaverse and beyond.